Rob Tebbutt here for Boxing News. Delighted to be joined by Mr. Frank Warren. We're here at the lovely Chiltern Firehouse in London. Frank, always a pleasure. Been a little while. How are you?
I'm all right, mate, and congratulations on the acquisition. I'm pleased for you.
Thanks very much. Thank you. Yeah, it's been kind of under wraps for a little while, kind of harbouring a deep, dirty little secret, but now it's out there for everybody. So thanks very much.
Well, we knew about that, but what about the dirty little secret?
Right, we're gonna try and get through this and try and keep it somewhat fresh. I do appreciate you've had back-to-back interviews. You're in pretty good form today, Frank, I think.
Yeah, well, I've had the old monkey glands injection, so I'm up and ready to go, mate.
Before we talk about some heavyweight business, well, let's start with some heavyweight business. David Adelaye returns this Friday. 11-0, 10 knockouts, a lot to be excited about for him. Obviously, provided he comes through this Friday. What's the plan for David Adelaye for the rest of this year?
Well, I want to see him come through it, and I want to see him fighting for. I like to see him fighting for the British title and other titles by the end of the year. I think he's a very good talent. He's a thoroughly consummate professional. He's invested in his own future. He moved trainers out to the States, which cost him a lot of money, but that tells you about his dedication and what he wants to do. So, David's a lovely fella, and he's exciting to watch. And I think we're going to get a nice performance from him on Friday, and I think he'll make a statement again.
You mentioned there about the British heavyweight title. It's been somewhat topical recently with Fraser Clark and Fabio Wardley. What sort of timescale are you looking at for a potential British heavyweight title shot for him?
Well, we'll see. Let's see what happens on Friday, and we can then determine where we go from there.
Before we talk about a certain Tyson Fury, who I haven't spoken to you about in a little while, we're almost in the early stages of TNT, of course, after the Discovery acquisition of BT Sport. What can you tell me about that? We haven't spoken in a little while, Frank. I'm a little bit out of the loop of what's going on with you. What can you tell us about TNT and what can we expect in the future?
TNT is boom! We're going to get some really big fights on there, some seriously big fights. I'm looking forward to it. We're going to get something there which I think is going to excite everybody. They come into, I think it's in about July, they came into action, and we got some great stuff lined up for the autumn. And we're going to see some serious dynamite fights on TNT.
I mean, speaking from kind of experience and recently, we've kind of been in a transitional phase where I've been waiting to launch and do something else. I know that for me, I've kind of held back certain things that I wanted to do with a new company. Is that what you've been doing?
Yeah, we've had to do it. I mean, we've obviously got to be some, BT, we're with BT, and BT, they're changing the name, but they're still 50% partners with Discovery Plus. But, we have... we're in a position where obviously we run into summer and people go on holidays and so forth, but we've got some good fights in July, a couple in August, and in September we've got some seriously big fights as well. Seriously big fights.
Okay, let's get on to them then, shall we? So, Tyson Fury. What's the latest with Tyson Fury? If you have to forgive me, I was on annual leave last week, Frank. I haven't been keeping up to date with all the latest happenings with the heavyweight division. Of course, we've seen a certain Alexander Usyk now signing with Skill Challenge Promotions. Where does that leave Mr. Fury at the minute?
Well, it leaves him as being the WBC champion who holds that belt and is the biggest draw in heavyweight boxing. They've gone and done their deal, which is a deal I've said in many interviews for quite a few months ago, that's the direction they were going in. And that was always their ulterior motive, and good luck to them. They're doing what a lot of people are doing in sport at the moment, going to Saudi, like the golfers have done, like the footballers are doing, Formula One had already done, WWE, they're going there, and they're getting well paid because they're professional sportsmen. And I get that and understand that. But don't confuse it with money, with the nobility of being a champion, want to fight the best, fighting the best, because if that was the case, the fight with Tyson would have gone on ages ago.
We've seen kind of a protracted period of negotiations, very public at the start of this year with Alexander Usyk's team. Does this signing with Alexander Usyk going to Skill Challenge, does it make it closer, further apart, exactly the same? Does it change anything at all?
All they keep saying is that they want the fight in Dubai, and they want it in there because they're getting well paid for it. And Tyson has no problems making that fight, providing we get a written offer. And as of yet, we had no written offer. We were talking about making a fight last December, that Usyk was injured. Then the Saudis came back and said we would do it in February. Then it was going to be April 29th. Then they said that their stadium wouldn't be ready, and they had to Skills Challenge had to go to the powers that be there for to get the funding, and the fight will take place in December, but we haven't had any offer. Until we get an offer, it's nothing we can consider.
Saw comments from Alex Krassyuk yesterday saying, and I quote, they'll receive a take it or leave it offer. I'm assuming you haven't had that yet.
Nothing. And well, the only offer we've had was their representative, Derek Chisora, saying that we would get 150 million, or the fighters would get 150 million pounds each. So we'll take it.
The official representative, Derek Chisora,
accepts the 150 million. We're there. I'll carry him there.
Did you ever think that the words would come out of your mouth, their representative, Derek Chisora, somebody that you're going to have to deal with now to make an undisputed title fight?
Listen, I like the deal he's putting forward. I've got no problem with it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Derek, you're my pal. Mind you, but then again, he should do, because we gave him his biggest ever payday in his last fight.
Where does this leave Tyson Fury? We've seen Itauma, we've seen Dempsey McKean, we've seen Andy Ruiz, Gilles Jacques. I could keep going on and on and on about the potential opponents for him this year. What's the plan with him?
But they're not from us. You know, they're things that were mentioned. Tyson went out to Australia to see his mate fight Parker, and some things were mooted and talked about, but we've never had an offer, so it's not there. As regarding Ruiz, my son George spoke to his people when they asked for $20 million, which is the equivalent as a challenger of a purse bid of a $100 million purse bid, which is not going to happen. Usyk we desperately tried to make. We don't try to do it quietly. And Tyson always said about this 30%, and there's a reason for that. Last year he did 2 fights, did 160-odd thousand tickets. I see Alex said yesterday, and I like Alex, by the way, he said yesterday that... He said yesterday, it's Alex, he said, oh, here's the offer. He said yesterday that, you know, how much Tyson had done on pay-per-view. Well, how would he know the numbers? He has no numbers. But what I do know is that the money that Tyson generated at Spurs was more money than they generated on pay-per-view, just on the gate. I know that the purse bid for Daniel Dubois and Usyk, his end of it is $6 million, if they're paying $6 million, because they got 75% of the purse to play with. Tyson, the value of Tyson, is last year we won a purse bid which got Dillian Whyte $8 million, who doesn't hold any belts and had a few losses on his record. That tells you the value of Tyson. If he doesn't fight Tyson in Saudi, then he's going to have to fight Hrgovic, which is worth much less money than the Daniel Dubois fight. But none of those are going to happen, because Daniel is going to knock him out.
We'll come on to Alexander Usyk versus Daniel Dubois shortly, but on Tyson Fury, where does that leave him? We spoke earlier and you mentioned about him wanting to box before December, regardless, boxing in September. What does that look like?
He's fighting in September.
Do you have any idea of an opponent yet? Has there been offers that have been sent out?
He is in mind, and we'll see where we go. We've exhausted the situation, I think, with Joshua. I think Hearn said yesterday that we made the offer knowing full well that they had a plan for him to fight in August, and then again, obviously, in Saudi for all this money, which he then says he's not had any offer from Saudi. But anyway, that's what he's saying. Who's he fighting in August? There's nothing arranged. They haven't signed anybody. They were talking about today, I think, talking about Dillian Whyte. So nothing's signed. Fight Tyson. Or is that not what you're all about? You want to fight Dillian Whyte, the guy that Tyson beat easily last year? Or do you want to fight Tyson Fury for the WBC title for 40% of the money? And if you go to purse bids, if you get in the number one position, you get 20%. So why are you saying this? You know, is it? And again, I get it, I understand it. It's about money. It's not about the prize. It's not about this. Your heart fighting for the biggest prize. And he said himself, AJ, a few weeks ago, it's all about money. All he's interested in money. Get it, understand it. We've seen all these sportsmen doing it. Good luck to him. God bless him. But stop this narrative of Tyson's ducking you, because he's not.
Have you given up hope, I guess, of the Tyson Fury-Anthony Joshua fight? It sounds like it's not something that you're anticipating.
They don't want it. They don't want it. Why wouldn't you fight for the title? You know, if you know the WBC ordered Ruiz and Wilder for the mandatory position fight, they won't fight. Didn't want to fight because Wilder's obviously again is going to fight for the money. Get it? Understand all that. I understand all of that. It's not happening. Number 3 is Joshua. Don't want it. They don't want it. They don't want it. What happened to the titles? I'll tell you what happened to the titles. People are going for all this money. That's what. And if there's no Saudi, the fight would have happened over here in April or May against Tyson and Usyk, that's what would have happened. Joshua's tongue would have been hanging out for the fight, but they've been seduced, and as I say, I get it and I understand it. I'm not naive that it's about the money.
It's kind of where I was going to come on to next, really. I read a piece a couple of days ago where it said about the Saudi money, kind of, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, as it's kind of put a logjam in the heavyweight division. Obviously, you know, we never begrudge fighters earning the most money. It's a very difficult business to ply your trade in. But is there some merit to that? Do you think it has distracted people?
Nothing's happened. You know, these fights could have been made, but they couldn't happen because of where we are. And I get that, and I understand it. I'm not for 1 minute saying any different. I understand that. The offers haven't come through for Tyson, so we've got nothing to consider yet, and we've been waiting for it. But in the meantime, it's held up the heavyweight division because no fights are happening because none of them, they're all terrified of losing the big payday. And the only one who wants to fight is Tyson.
As you know, Frank, I spend most of my day sitting around, stuffing my face and seeing what's going on Twitter. It seems to me, at least from my kind of vantage point, that people are just a bit sick of this kind of back and forth, constant back and forth between people. How do we put an end to that?
Make the fights or accept the truth. And the truth is, as I've accepted, and I've been saying for ages what it is, it's all about the fighters. I'm not talking about Tyson, because Tyson wants to fight, but it's all about all of them waiting to fight in Saudi, all of them talking about all this money, but none of them, based upon what we're up until today, none of them have got anything in writing, as far as I understand, from what their promoters have said, nothing saying how much they're going to get paid.
Do you include Tyson in that kind of that batch of heavyweights who, I'm not saying he's all about the money, but would you include Tyson in that?
But that's why, you know, sometimes Tyson's his own worst enemy. You know, I talked to him, I said, right, you know, we're talking to Joshua like we were, you know, last December, which was pretty fruitless and waste of time because at the end of the day, Frank Smith said what he said. He wasn't going to be ready. He said this 2 weeks after it all fell apart. He's not going to be ready to fight. And we had a draft contract, let's say. He's not going to be ready to fight. He didn't even have a trainer. So it's all a waste of time. Tyson wanted that fight. You know, we wanted to make happen. But every time I went to him, he kept saying to me, that fight is not going to happen. I said, well, I said, I'm really, and I felt quite confident. Felt like there was a willingness to do it. And he said it won't happen. And it didn't happen. He was right. And he kept saying, I'll go back to him. He said, well, right, Frank, they've got 48 hours. I said, they're coming back in 48 hours. I've got, and then you, 48 hours, come on, you're docile, you got, you know, there he is. And he said, and that's what it was. And that is his frustration. That's him getting it out there. And people saying, why is he putting time limits on there? Because that's what we were being told. And let's get it right. We'd be still sitting now, scratching our Niagaras, still waiting for these offers. Nothing has come through.
Where's Tyson at the minute with regards to how he's looking? Is he desperate to get out? Is he happy to potentially wait for December for Daniel Dubois or Alexander Usyk?
He wants to get out, and he'll believe the offer when he gets it. And if we get the offer, we get an offer. You know, take it or leave it. That's how it'll be. If it's the offer, we'll take it. If it's the offer, what their representative Derek Chisora said it is, just send. We haven't got to negotiate. Send it. We'll sign it. I'll sign it now. I'll carry him over there. I'll do it. We're good to go.
We saw a kind of split 70-30 or 60-30 rematch clause, this, that and the other. What do the terms have to be to make it right? Besides the 150 million from Derek Chisora for Tyson Fury versus, let's say, Alexander Usyk, because he currently has the belt.
Tyson said to him, and we didn't do this publicly. These were the conversations going back and forth. We said to him, Tyson doesn't want a rematch clause. So if he loses, he doesn't want a rematch. If you lose and you want the rematch, he'll give it to you. But he doesn't want one. That's his confidence.
You mentioned earlier about getting on with Alex Krassyuk. I haven't spoke to him in a little while. What's the relationship between you now? Do you believe that he wanted to make the fight, or did you believe it was kind of a ruse, so to speak, to get the deal with Skill Challenge?
I've got no idea. I like Alex. I've got a lot of time for him. He's a good manager. He's done what he's had to do. Promoter. He's saying what he's got to say because he's representing his fighter, and I'm doing the same. But I'm telling him what really did happen rather than, you know, trying to be selective and have a bit of selective memory, I should say. You know, we're saying how it is. There's no, you know, there's been nothing whatsoever. But what we said is how we want it to happen. And I know the haters are out there, but they're haters anyway. What are you going to do?
Daniel Dubois versus Alexander Usyk, August the 26th. Now, you've made it abundantly clear that you're backing your man, of course, as you would. How big of an upset would this be if Daniel Dubois is able to unseat Alexander Usyk?
It'd be an upset for them. not for me.
And what makes you feel that way?
Because I think he's big, I think he's strong, I think he's got a good chin, I think it's his time. He's a young man, and I just think he's too big for him. I looked at Usyk's couple of fights against Joshua, and Joshua's not the fighter he was. That first fight, he done what he had to do. Joshua was pretty poor in that fight. The second fight, Joshua was better in the fight, but it didn't impress me. I mean, I'd back Daniel all day long against Joshua, and I think he would stop him. And I looked at the fight against him and Usyk against Derek Chisora. I looked at Tyson against Derek Chisora, who didn't win a second of a round. I look at those fights, and I look at my man and think to myself, I know what he can do. I really do know what he can do. He's been very unlucky in a couple of fights. He was unlucky with the eye injury against Joe, although Joe boxed really well. He boxed a very sensible fight. He had a bad eye injury, which is well documented, and he tore all his leg and ligament, but he still got on with the fight. He was struggling to walk. You could see he couldn't put any there, and he went. And if he catches you, you are out. You're in trouble. You've got to have some serious chin to withstand that. Some serious resilience. And I do not think that that Usyk will be able to stand that.
You mentioned there about Daniel's last fight against Kevin Lerena. How is the knee? We're still kind of none the wiser as to how fit he is.
The doctors allowed. He's back. Obviously, he's back in training, and he's been seeing. Been at Gary Llewellyn's, who's a former England Arsenal trainer at his gym. His son Colin's been looking after him, and he's really pleased with where he's at. So he's back in training. I spoke to him yesterday, and he's full of it. He can't wait to get out there.
Daniel, of course, in the position that he is with the WBA regular title, meaning that he's next in rotation. Ideally, on the back of a serious injury, he's got a new trainer now as well. He was dropped by Kevin Lerena, who is a smaller, southpaw, decent, tricky fighter. Would you ideally, in an ideal world, have another fight?
No. We can't. We have that luxury. He's going to fight. And you're right, we said with Lerena, but you've got to realise that fight was in winter. At Spurs, open air stand. No one does that. Only lunatics promote shows on those.
Yeah, it was freezing, Frank. Thanks.
It was very good. And I didn't think he was that warm. And any fighter, you get clipped on the top of the head. The first round's a very dangerous round. You see really good fighters I've seen over the years get caught, but he got up. He got up, but unfortunately, going over, tore all his leg. And he struggled a bit with that. You could see, as I've just mentioned, he did it, but he still had the wherewithal and, more importantly, the balls and the heart to get in there and do what he does. And once you're in trouble with him. You're in trouble with him. And he did what he had to do.
Final one on Daniel Dubois. You mentioned there about his heart. I mean, it's something that has unfairly, in my opinion, been levelled against him. The Joe Joyce fight, obviously took a knee and was counted out in that fight. Must be a huge positive to see him pick himself up off the floor in the first round with a serious injury and ground out the win.
Well, he was in front against Joe on the judges' card. But having said that, he had a terrible eye injury. I mean, he had he had 3 fractures in his socket. I get what he did, and I understand it, and that's right. It's what he should have. If he hadn't done that, the doctor said you would be blind in one eye now, and that's a fact.
The fact that he carried on against Kevin Lerena with a very serious knee injury must be something that... No, I get that. I get what you're saying completely.
What you're doing. It's like Joe. I think if Joe never had that eye injury against Zhang, I think he would have won the fight. Been interested to see what happened in the latter round. But once you lost sight in one eye, you're in trouble. And that's it. He was in trouble.
You mentioned there Joe Joyce versus Zhilei Zhang. We are waiting for official confirmation of that rematch. As I understand it, as you said, that is on. What can you tell me about it?
I can tell you it's on, and we'll be announcing the date in next week or so.
Given the nature of the first fight, I know you've said there that you feel that Joe was potentially going to get to him later on in the fight, but it was alarming how often he was hit by Zhilei Zhang. He was a big, strong lump, southpaw. How much better does Joe Joyce need to be in the rematch in order to right the wrong?
It'll be much, much better. First of all, is that look, Joe gets caught in all fights, and it's something that I sit there sometimes, but he does it. Joe Parker, he looked brilliant against Joe Parker, but he got caught with some good shots. He gets caught. I think he struggled with the southpaw style, but he did. He was kept getting caught with that shot, and it was unfortunate that he just couldn't get out of the way of it. And I think that when it started closing, I think he really did struggle with it. He can't do that again. If he does that again, coming too light, I think he came in light. I would I want to see him. He's got first thing to have to do is move. If you don't learn from it, if you don't start moving his head, get out there, then it'll be the same result. And his career is on the line. That's a fact. His career's on the line for this fight.
Why has he gone straight back in? Obviously, I understand the political landscape with the WBO, but considering the first fight, it was fraught, it was dangerous for him in there at times. Was there ever any consideration about going another route?
Look, he didn't have to take the fight, but he took the fight. He wanted that fight. The WBO called for it, and he wanted it, and he wants the rematch. So you know, you got to take your hat off to him. He's not doing an Usyk or an AJ.
And the final one on this heavyweight edition of Boxing News with Frank Warren, a certain Moses Itauma, somebody who I'm very, very excited about. I know you are too. We've just seen that he's been announced back in Telford in a few weeks' time. How good could he be, Frank?
Look, he's a young lad. Was he 18 about 3 or 4 months ago? Well, January. So he's at 18. He's got a long way to go yet. But I'll tell you something. I think he's something special. And I think if he keeps learning, he keeps his feet on the ground, he keeps learning, I think he can be the next big thing.
Still the plan to beat Mike Tyson's record?
That's what he wants, and we'll see. Look, it's nice to have some ambition, and he's got that ambition. What he did in the amateurs was phenomenal, was absolutely phenomenal, and the sparring that he's had with everybody, I'm talking about all the big heavyweights, he's performed extremely well against all of them.
Got a reputation, I know you won't mind me saying it, for bringing young talent through and taking people from the early stages of their career right the way to the heavyweight title, or right the way to title level. Doing that with a young southpaw skilled guy like him must make you feel 20 years younger, Frank.
Yeah, I am. I feel 20 years younger now, so I'm feeling like 30 years of age. I'm flying, mate.
Okay, Frank, 40. We'll let you get away with 40. Frank Warren, always a pleasure. Nice to see you, and hopefully catch up with you very soon.
Cheers. Thanks, mate. All the best.